All right, all right, all right. Let's listen to some music. Let's do this. Hey, everybody. For anybody who couldn't join us for the office hours call, hope you're having a good day, evening, morning. It's a Moon Knight hat. I think Eddie Bashag sent this out to me. They actually dropped it off at the studio, I think. It's a Moon Knight hat. Yeah, these are new headphones. I decided to get a new pair. I love the 7506s. We've got some pairs of these, the Behringers at the studio, these DT 770s. They're good. They kind of, the one thing that I don't love about them so far is they're a little more like closed ear. And some people have like real sensitivity to kind of, those noise canceling headphones. Like I can't wear those at all. They actually make me sick to my, they make me dizzy. They're kind of, they're not good. So I'm getting a little bit of that weird kind of, when there's like, it's almost like a vacuum seal on my ears. It feels a little like uncomfortable. So I think this is just going to be like a temporary thing while they break in a little bit. But other than that, they sound really good. I think they feel like fairly accurate. All right, so let's get started. Let me just get this ready. I'm looking forward to listening to some new music. Oh, so one thing I just wanted to say for this week, I'm not going to be, if it's a song that's already been, that I've already given feedback on, I'm not going to give it feedback like on this call again. Just a heads up. So if you submitted something that was submitted as part of one of your assignments or something like that, and I've already listened to it, we're not gonna do that today. We're gonna be focused on songs that I haven't had a chance to listen to yet, because everybody else would have gotten, if I've listened to your song already, you would have already gotten feedback. I'm not sure if I've heard this song. Let's give it a try. I want to make sure that this is a song that hasn't been heard yet. This is Christina Vaughn. Looks like it's called I'm Not Afraid. I want to say that this song has maybe gotten screened before, but let me just we'll give it a listen and see. And if it has, we'll skip it. And don't worry, we got a ton of music to listen to today. So, I reviewed this song already. I think I've actually reviewed this song on this call, as well as I gave some extended feedback yesterday on this one. So we're going to skip this one for right now. Sonic Scott, you're next. Let's see this one. Is this one of the ones you haven't? I might have heard this song before. Okay. Yeah, I believe I've heard this song before, but I think I've actually even given direct feedback on the listening session with this too. So, yeah, okay. I think this one that's weird. Like this has been 2 weeks in a row that I think both those songs have been at the top of the queue for some reason. I thought I deleted them last week, but yeah, it's probably, I don't think you resubmitted it. I think I just must have forgotten to take it out. Next up is Jeremy Walton. Yeah, it's nothing. No, not your fault. I think I swear I deleted them out of there. It must just be a weird Airtable thing. Airtable must be tripping. All right. This track's no longer available, Jeremy. If you want to resubmit, feel free to resubmit, but the link doesn't work. Lucy Lee, you're next. Hand Out of Your Pocket. Have I heard this? So get your hand out your pocket. I don't think I've heard this. Let's check it out. I don't remember screening this song. All right.
Run, don't walk, more do, let's talk, let's go. You got your hand in your pocket, like you're searching for change. Take a coin to a scratcher and you're praying for the money to rain. Life has got you dangling like a kitten on a string. Get your hand out your pocket if you really wanna make a change. Let's go. Ready or not, let's go. Oh, oh. Let's go. Give it a shot, let's go. Oh, oh. And now you're going through the motions, but you're feeling like you can't catch up. You've got a boulder on your shoulder. Give it a shot, let's go. Oh, oh. Hey, let's go. Ready or not, let's go. Oh, oh. Let's go. Give it a shot, let's go. Oh, oh. Let's go. Oh.
Hey, great. Yeah, I was just laughing. Said a little kiddo there clapping along. How's it going? Glad you could join us. So with this song, I feel like it's if I did screen this last week, it might have been. I just feel like this one, the rock vibe is very. It feels like a bit of a dated vibe, dated sound with the rock sound, especially the electric guitars. Yeah, I just the thing I like the energy of it. I feel like it's got like some of the keyword, the like, let's go, oh. It's a fairly simple like top line. I think for choruses, those tend to be some of the best ones for ads. I think that the title of the song is a little confusing to me in the realm of like sync, like hand out your pocket. Doesn't strike me as like I have a hard time figuring out what that's. Like just seeing the title, I would never put together "Let's Go" as like kind of the main chorus from that. It's a little confusing to me. Like just usually you want when you have a title, you want the title to kind of give people a very strong vibe what the track is about, what the theme is. And if it's hard to guess what the theme is, then maybe you could retitle the song. But I think this one goes further back than that, though. I feel like it all goes back to like what are your refs with this? Like it feels like it's got a little bit of a Gwen Stefani kind of vibe too, with the vocal, like maybe 2000s Gwen Stefani kind of vibe. So yeah, it just feels like it's a little bit of a throwback. And it's not quite. It's a little confusing to me thematically what it's about. So I think like maybe just going back to what are your modern refs for this to kind of modernize your production, and then of course like your writing is going to have to pivot to kind of match that, to match kind of what the modern take on this type of music would be. What's a more modern flavor of energetic female led pop rock that you can sink your teeth into and feel really excited about and produce out in a way that's like that's kind of rising to the level. I feel like there's as a whole, like kind of as an arrangement, it's like working pretty well together. It just kind of feels like it's like a full sound. Doesn't sound like it's like too sparse or anything like that. I just feel that overall like the angle feels a little bit dated, and it's just like it's not quite a concentrated enough message. I didn't have a chance to really like look at the lyrics or anything like that for this, but yeah, I just think like all your decisions are going to need to like kind of be reevaluated when you kind of in future tracks like maybe consider an angle that's a little more modern sounding. That's what I got on this one. Yeah, thanks for sharing it. I got another kiddo over there. Popsicle, nice, classic. Is that like an Otter Pop or something like that? Those were like my favorite thing when I was a kid. Okay, Feels Like Home. Actually, I did review this song yesterday, actually. So we're going to skip that one. And if we do end up clearing out the queue and people want to bounce tracks back in here, and we want to do like a deeper dive on any angle of something that I've already reviewed, I'm happy to do that. Just I want to try to like work on and get some feedback for songs that haven't gotten feedback yet. All right, let's see if this one, unreleased work tape. Okay, cool. This is from Otter Pops are like, they're basically like that sounds like a little healthier than like, I mean, Otter Pops are basically just popsicles that are in a little plastic straw, and you cut the top off and then you eat it, but it's all just like sugar. And electrolyte Gatorade sounds like it's more like, sounds a little healthier than like what I was eating when I was a kid. I mean, I say it was my favorite thing when I was a kid. I'll still sometimes get them if I see them in like the store or something like that. They're called Otter Pops because like the actual packaging, like it's like cartoon otters, like all the different flavors they hit. It's like a different otter, like I can't remember the names of them, but there's like a grape one and a raspberry one and oh yeah. Well, it sounds like it's exactly the same thing. It's just like a different brand of it. Yeah, Flavor Ice is another one. Yeah, it's kind of a similar concept. I think I've had Flavor Ice ones too. Christina, you're next. Sorry, I'm such a like. It's so like easy for me to get distracted. I'm like popsicle. What? Where? Let's talk about popsicles for 15 minutes. Here we go. This is you, Christina. We're gonna share the screen. Cool. Let's give it a spin here. Triumph. Work tape. Yeah, actually, so everybody who's chiming in that we've heard this before and we've heard that before, I actually cleared out the queue completely last week. So some of these might be resubmits. And it looks like this is an edited version of it, perhaps. So I gave it a spin for a little bit. It does sound a little cleaned up to me from the previous version. I think the thing that I'm not seeing with this that you typically want to have in like cinematic kind of instrumental stuff is kind of like that 3-act build that Brian Vickers was talking about. And when you look at the shape of the waveform, it's kind of like it's like sparse, but it's all kind of the same. And then it's like a big thick brick, and the brick is kind of happening throughout the rest of the song. So it's kind of opposite of like kind of the Pac-Man approach that Brian Vickers was talking about, where it kind of builds up and then it comes back down, then it builds up again, then comes back down, and then it builds up to like the biggest, like throw the kitchen sink at it and it comes back down. Is maybe like dynamically what you want it to look a little more like and kind of sound like. I feel like you have had my track before. Okay. So yeah, that's my thoughts on this. I feel like it's as far as, because we did review it in the past. And I'm seeing that, like, I know that one of the pieces of feedback that I gave was that it didn't seem like it had like enough of like kind of a dynamic to it. That's actually probably the first thing that I would address on something like this. And if you want good examples, I think I said this last time, but if you want really good examples of how it's done, you would just go to like all the different trailer houses and different trailer music companies and just listen to their libraries. They're just full of great examples. Some of the libraries include like Audio Machine. Audio Machine's like a great one to look at. I would just go there. Another good one's Epidemic Sound is another good one, but there's a bunch of them out there. All right. Corin Norcut. I do see it. I see some of these songs in here. I mean, it's basically first in, first out is the way this works. So it just sorts them by like the first song entered in is the first song that we're gonna play. That's how we do this. So I do see your song a little further down the list. It's not too far down the list. We'll probably get to it today. Yeah, Corey. Sarah. Yeah. Yeah. And then unfortunately, if I answered every single thing that people are chiming in there for this, I wouldn't have much time to play the songs. So let's just keep listening to songs here. This is, let's see. I apologize. Is it Jamin Krause? I think it's Jamin Krause. I mispronounced your name on the last call. Over the Waves. Let's check it out. I think I might have listened to this yesterday. Let's see. In the age that replay. If so long the stars are all straight, and I hear you calling my name, you'll say, keep your head up over the waves. Oh yeah, I did listen to this. I don't know what's going on with Airtable. Yeah, I recognize that song. I also gave you feedback on that yesterday. I listened to that one. All right, well, how about you just let me know this one. I'm just going to start playing some songs, and if you guys recognize them, let me know. Yes, no. I
remember the first time we went for a walk.
Yeah, I vaguely remember that one as well. Okay. Don't worry, everybody. We're going to get through this. You and I together are going to get through all this. Okay, that one we've also done. I know we've done this one. All right. This one. So just so everybody knows, we still got like 30 songs left in the queue, so it's not like we're okay. Gotcha. Oh yeah. It's all starting to make sense, I think. All right, so we are going to start. Okay, let's just skip forward to Corin. Let's skip forward to you. We're going to have plenty of songs still. Is this on the right track for TV, film and TV placement? What elements could be added to improve on the track? Let's check it out. All right. You guys were right. I was wrong. I can admit. I just wanted to make sure we weren't skipping anything. Sorry. Okay.
Everything we have, everything we've done, always together. Moments past, still holding on to our forever. We have grown and we have changed, but should we still feel the same? 'Cause I can't find where you are. Maybe we've enough, baby, maybe we've enough. Please let our love be just enough. Maybe it's enough, I pray it is enough. 'Cause all I want is you. All I want is you. The hands I've held, the voice I've known, I don't wanna lose them. The path we forged, the vows we made, I don't want to abandon all this new complacency has got me doubting everything. How did we get here? Maybe we're enough, maybe we're enough, baby, maybe we're enough. Please let our love be just enough. Maybe it's enough, I pray it is enough. 'Cause all I want is you.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to play the whole thing, but we can't. Just don't have the time for it. It's great. I think the songwriting on this is really strong, and I feel like the vocalist has really got a cool thing going on with the vocal. I think there were a couple of phrases early on that it was really hard for me to tell what you were singing. That's the only note that I had in terms of that. So maybe. But I really like the kind of, it's almost like an intentional kind of de-enunciation that's happening that I think is really cool, and it's working. So yeah, I mean, I don't know what to say. As far as like a sparse piano ballad, I feel like this is like really working. I think that you could obviously build this out to something much bigger, but this would also be great to just kind of build out like an acoustic version of this with just like a piano, some background vocals, maybe some like real strings in some parts, and just like really nothing else than that. You know, maybe even like a pad or something like that. I mean, if you just did that, you did a version like that, you could pitch a song like this for shows for sure. Could be like a cool artist track too. And then there's different like ways in the pop world that you could kind of make this a little bigger. But I would like kind of, at least initially, I'd maybe make a version that's just like very minimal. And yeah, I mean, you could just, yeah, also synth is another thing you could think about too. But I think like, you know, the more that you add to this, the more it's going to kind of take away from like how, potentially it could take away from how just impressive and like just ear catching the vocal is. It's great. I think it's great. And I love that you hold off on like the big moment with the vocal until the very end. That's again where I feel like, if you were having like a bigger production on this, you probably wouldn't want to wait that long to kind of give the big vocal. You'd probably want that to come in like the second chorus or something like that. Because it's like people's attention span is much smaller. And then like the track energy might kind of make it more appropriate to go up into that space sooner. So that's my thought on this. I think this is a really marketable song, and it's just really well written. Sounds like a modern pop singer-songwriter track. And I feel that, you know, it sounds like it's about a relationship, but it also feels like it could be potentially used for other things. Just the theme of the chorus feels a little more general, which I think also works. You know, there could be some other situations that, so that's the other thing, you know, maybe you could look at your lyrics and think you might be able to make a decision here or there, make a tweak here or there that could make your song even more universal, rather than like something that pertains to like a relationship. That's the only other thought. I don't really remember the lyrics too well, but the chorus is, I just think, I think this is great. Like, this is a really well-written song. And I think you should be really proud of the work you've done. And, you know, if you follow through with the execution, you're totally like in a lane that I think that there's like a marketplace for sure. So, I'm excited for you. You know, writing a good song is not easy. And you've done it. So rad. You know, yeah, I'd be careful with the percussion, you know, because the choice on the percussion could be all the difference with that. I mean, if you were doing like percussion, you might want to just like do some like kind of like low impacts, like really muffled kind of kicks or something like that. Just something really subtle, just because like the potential is there for it to distract. I would just be really careful when you add when you add any kind of percussion kind of thing. I would think this would maybe be more like something where you would just want to add some type of a low element. But that's just me if I was doing this. I think it's great. Nice job. What a great way to start off I mean, I guess this is kind of like where we're starting off from last week. So very cool way to start things off. This thing, sometimes my camera goes really out of focus. I don't really know why it does. All right, Amanda, you're up next. Amanda Stewart. Here we go. Oh, good. I'm glad it's helpful. Here we go. Oh, let me see what notes we're being asked for. Hang on a sec. Unreleased master. I don't want to overproduce, but I want to see if it needs anything else. Okay, cool. Here we go.
Home is where the heart is. The road is where my feet fit. The open skies, they follow me to any place I go, for I know our hearts are home. Home is where the heart is, where fragile pieces neatly sit. Words of love come easily as your eyes look back at me. You know our hearts are home. Come quickly, come from the valleys low to my heart, your home. Come quickly, come from the heights you roll to my heart, your home. Home is where the heart is, with every good and bad bit. It makes no difference where we are, our strength and fire sets us apart. We know our hearts are home. Come quickly, come from the heights you roll. And time will never change. Quickly come from the valleys low to my heart, your home. Come quickly, come from the heights you roll to my heart, your home. Come quickly, come from the valleys low to my heart, your home. Come quickly, come from the heights you.
Well, to answer your question, I don't feel like it's overly cluttered or anything like that. I don't feel like the arrangement is like, it feels full. It doesn't feel, I feel like, could you add like a piece of ear candy or two here and there? Sure. Maybe some kind of high kind of interest could be kind of cool. Felt like that was maybe the part that was missing a little bit for me, just in terms of like the sounds. I noticed that, I mean, I'll just give you a few other points that I was kind of making as I was listening to it, if you'd like them. If not, you can just, ignore everything that I'm about to say, but which is perfectly fine. I noticed the vocals are a little pitchy in some places. And it was pretty early on in the track. So that's something you gotta be really careful with, because it can throw people off like right away. there's a chord change. I felt like in the songwriting, there's a chord, like I think it's like the second chord in the progression. It's like a song about home, and it's like this really kind of good feeling. And then there's like almost like this, it's like kind of a jazzy, kind of almost like a sad, mysterious kind of vibe with that second chord. And it kind of takes me out of the mood a little bit of like the song. So that was like one thing that just like in terms of like the shift, there was a shift in the track that kind of felt not necessarily like in like the vibe of the theme of the song for me. Got to watch out for the vibrato, the way that with singing, it can be a really like, it can be kind of like a thing that can really date the sound of a track. So I would just be careful with the use of vibrato in especially on like end lines and stuff like that. It can make it sound less modern. I think it's got like some nice builds. I think it's got like kind of an anthemic, organic kind of anthemic kind of vibe. I think you could play that up even more and have like more dynamics between your sections. I think if you listen to like a lot of the stuff like American Authors, like the stuff like those types of songs, that it's a real like 0 to 60 kind of vibe that can happen with it, where like when the kick does come in and it kind of drives it, it's like it's a big difference when that all comes together. And then the other thing I wanted to say, just in terms of like thematically with this, it feels like it's like a romantic vibe to this song. And once again, it's like I feel like when you write a song about home, it's better to write a song about home, not necessarily a song about home and love, and especially romantic love. Like home in a platonic and love in like a platonic sense might be more marketable than something that's very specific like home. And it might not seem very specific, but it actually is. Something that's like the focus is home and like kind of a romantic connotation with it. And the thing is too with it, it's like, it feels like the message in the chorus is very complex. Like it's a complex kind of unfolding lyrically. And so it's not totally obvious to me what the title of the song is listening to it. So that's another thing. I feel like a lot of times at these more like kind of anthemic, kind of up tempo kind of things, it's like there's maybe picking like one point to drive across might be more effective than kind of like a more complicated, maybe like artist type chorus. I feel like the artist type choruses that used to do this were ones that were more, it kind of dates it a little bit. It feels like to me, just kind of in general, that approach, as opposed to like a more modern kind of like just driving one point across. Just some stuff to think about, you know? I mean, I feel like this is a pretty well put together track. It sounds good. The instrumental performances sound pretty good. Mix wise, it feels pretty tight. It's hard to really evaluate the low end on this kind of stuff, but you know, I feel like that's what I got to say on this one. Just some production points and some songwriting points, if you care to have them. And if not, you know, the main feedback you were asking for, I don't really feel like it needs a lot of touches, just maybe like maybe a little piece of ear candy here and there. You could even like look for like perhaps like even like a modern touch would be like kind of like a plucky kind of synth, like high kind of bell plucky kind of synth in the back. It does like ding, ding, ding. You could do like some little things in the background that just kind of have their place in the mix. That could be a fun little addition, and probably be something I would think of maybe adding in a place like this or in a song like this. As always, I mean, I think it goes without saying at this point, but obviously I'm just one person and this is just my opinion on things. So, and anytime I give advice or, you know, any feedback that's above like what somebody's asking for, I'm doing it. I'm not doing it to like, you know, put my stamp on any song in particular. I just kind of feel like if there's anything that I can say that might help benefit the class in general, I always try to like voice that, because it's kind of the whole point we're here, right? Is it usable? Okay, Megan, is it usable for sync? How do you see this mix of genres? Okay, well, let's check it out. Mark, it's been so great having you on these calls. I feel like you've come a long way as well. It's like the ear training is so important. You know, this is all just part of the ear training that we do. All right, this song is called Like Water. I reviewed this yesterday. Sorry. We'll skip anything for now. We may go back if there's time, but anything I've already given feedback on, I believe this one also. Yep, gave feedback on this one already. Here we go. What is this? Have I heard this before? I saw you fall. No, I haven't heard this. All right, Matthew Dennis, you're up next. Here we go. Ideas of where to take the production. Okay. I would say like you should probably, when you're writing a song, you should probably have kind of an idea of where you're going to take the production. You probably should if you have references for what you're writing. This is the thing. This is something that really like used to baffle me. I'd be like, I'd write a song and then I'd kind of be like, oh, I kind of want it to sound like this, or I kind of want it to sound like that, or I might like it to sound like there, but then I'm trying to like listen to the two and then they're a little too different. So what I do now is instead of like writing a song and then trying to figure out like what genre it fits into, unless it's like totally obvious, more of the time I'm thinking like, what kind of song am I trying to write? And then I know when I'm writing it that this is kind of the production that I want it to have. And I feel like that is probably going to set you up for success more in the future when you write. But let's give it a listen. I'm happy to throw my 2 cents in on what you could do with this. Let's give it a listen. Here, let me share the screen. Here we go. I saw you fall. I saw you fall. I saw you take the hardest hits of them all. But don't you give up, 'cause there's a lot more in you. You got a lot more in you. Don't you stay down. Get up and reach deep within you. If I will continue, just give one more round. Just because the night's been calling doesn't mean the sun is falling. Give it one more hour and watch it rise. Don't you give up, 'cause there's a lot more in you. You got a lot more in you. Don't you stay down. Get up and reach deep within you. If I will continue, just give it one more round. Don't you give up, 'cause there's a lot more in you. You got a lot more in you. Get off the ground. Get up and reach deep within you. You give up. I think that if I was, if somebody asked me to produce this, I would probably say, probably the thing that kind of struck me, at least initially with this, was that kind of reminded me of like Coldplay a little bit, that you could probably do a piano version of this song, and kind of produce it in like a Coldplay kind of vein. This is, for anybody who is asking, this is Matthew Dennis. So Matthew, I would say like, yeah, Coldplay would be like maybe a modern reference that you could do a sound alike or something like kind of in the ballpark of, although maybe the I mean, the more modern Coldplay, I don't know that this would really work for. Yeah, I feel like really your best strategy moving forward with the songwriting is really to try, at least until maybe this kind of comes a little more naturally for you, to really like think what are your references before you start writing, because then you're going to be writing in a way and in a style that kind of suits the genre of the music and kind of suits like kind of the and one thing that I think you'll really learn a lot about, if you listen to like kind of hit songwriting, you listen to stuff that's like commercially out there getting placements, you kind of learn a little bit more about like, because I feel like one thing with this song that it kind of isn't it can do better job of is like just kind of having a build. Right now it does build up, but then it kind of falls before whatever could feel like a drop to me. It kind of builds up and builds up, and then it kind of drops down. It's almost like, I say this sometimes, it's like the guy, that Lonely Island video where it's like, it's not quite like that, but it's kind of like that concept that you're building it up and you're building it up and you're building it up and you're building it up. And then at the end, it's like, nope, not yet. And then it builds back up and it builds back up and it builds back up. So what we want is like, you want to figure out like, what's your big like crescendo. The crescendo that you have kind of feels like a transition into something else, and it doesn't really land in like a bigger place for me, just upon like the first listen. That's a thought there. I felt like the lyrics too, just in terms of like your lyric writing. This is once again just like not feedback you asked for, but I feel like it's worth mentioning that. And this is something that I do give quite a bit of feedback on sometimes, is like, when lyrics are too general, it's really, I feel like in general / using stuff, what can happen is if songs have lyrics that feel a little too general, what happens is that there can be cliches in there, and then it's like, it kind of like loses some of the emotional impact of it. So I feel like maybe a freshening up of the lyrics on this one would probably be good. But I think like, in terms of like just the original feedback, I feel like all of this is kind of, you want to, if you start viewing this from the lens of what your references are, you're going to have a lot more success, because you're probably also going to see like what are the what like themes and kind of builds and what are the topics that these references that you have tend to go for. Obviously there's like this pained kind of like, just kind of emotional explosion for like Imagine Dragons, for just to give one example. There's different types of artists have different types of things that they tend to reach for, and I think the same thing could happen with your writing when you do a little bit of that work and kind of reapproach the whole songwriting angle from that. That's my suggestion to you. I feel like you're doing a really good job here. The one thing I think you're doing a great job here is you do have a build with the track, which I think is important. I just think that, getting your big moment, you gotta, just songwriting wise, everybody wants that payoff. So figuring out what your payoff is and then maybe working backwards too is a trick that I use a lot, that I find pretty helpful. Is like trying to write a big part of a song first is sometimes like the best way to go about it, but there's no rules to songwriting either. I just know like once I have like something that feels really huge, sometimes I'll kind of reverse engineer from there. Sometimes it takes a little while to figure out like what's the peak of the song, what is the chorus, if there is a one. Sometimes you don't need a chorus. Sometimes you just need hook after hook after hook after hook. But strip it down to 21 Pilots, maybe. Yeah, I don't know. The lyrics don't really strike me as like 21 Pilots type lyrics. But yeah, it's the thing that hit me like right off the bat. It kind of had a little bit of a Coldplay vibe with the vocalist and just kind of the way that the track kind of started out. But yeah, that's what I think of that. Thanks for sharing it, man. Next up. Let's see. I don't think we've listened to this. Let's check it out. Overall feedback. Oh, wow. Okay. Hang on a sec. Okay. Overall feedback. You got it. Here we go.
I gotta be honest, destiny is calling. I can hear it from a million miles away. I'm taking massive action, I will make it happen. Nothing can block me, that's all I gotta say. I'm not opposed to chasing what I love. There's no excuse to wait with all of it at stake. You might see me sailing past the sun. I'm searching for my way, I hope it's not too late. I'm shooting for the stars, I'm aiming through the clouds. I'm shooting for the stars, and I'm never coming down, down, down. I'm pushing forward progress, got no other options. Every obstacle is moving out the way. The past can't be an issue, I have to continue. I'm shooting for the stars, I'm aiming through the clouds. I'm shooting for the stars. Some say I'll turn to dust, I don't care, I was made. Some say it's dangerous, I don't care, I was made.
I really love the I love the instrumental on this. This is a sick track. I think it sounds great. It sounds like modern pop to me. I think it sounds really good. My thoughts are that the top line and the vocal are not really rising to the level of the instrumental. That's for me what the main, just my opinion on it. I feel like the top line could be possibly rewritten to like maybe a fresher angle, and then maybe a more cutting vocal performance. I feel like the vocalist is kind of like holding back a little bit with it, just a little bit. And it's also just not really cutting through the mix the way it kind of needs to. Maybe it's a little, there could be like some mixed stuff that's causing that to happen. I think that's my main feedback with this. I think like as far as the top line goes, I feel like there's probably a fresher angle you could take with this. Some of the lyrics feel a little too general. They feel a little too like I've heard it before. And that's like, you know, just my thoughts on that. But I can't say how much I like the instrumental enough. I mean, I think the instrumental is really dope, and I think you've got like a really good foundation to top line. I would just consider retop lining it, and you know, get a better, like a more emotional, cutting vocal performance is my thoughts on this. Those are my main pieces of feedback on it. I feel like for the most part, everything there's mixed stuff in there that you mentioned that you didn't need feedback on already. So, you know, it sounds like you're tightening that up, and I thought your transitions were pretty good. You could like spoon feed them a little bit more. But it sounds like you're already working on that. I think it's a great track, and you should be really happy with especially should be happy with the instrumental. I would just really strongly consider retop lining it, because I feel like it's worth it. It's like, you know, sometimes with this stuff, it's like you put in this work and you apply it, and you know, it might be fine to just finish up this version and just, you know, maybe you have a different strategy for top lining next time around. But I wouldn't be saying this if I didn't feel like it would be worth your time. I feel like it would be worth considering. So that's my thoughts on it. Thanks for sharing it. I think it's a cool, really, really dope instrumental track. Sounds super modern to me, super marketable. Sometimes you say cook the vocals into the mix, and here you say the vocals are not sitting enough on top. Actually, you never really want the vocals to sit on top. What you want, and this is just, once again, like I'm one independent producer, writer. I mix, like I've gotten pretty decent at mixing stuff. My experience with all this is when I'm situating vocals in a mix and when I hear stuff that's professionally produced and released, what typically where you want is you want that vocal to have like a nice presence. You want it to be feel like it's in the track. You want the track to have a nice pocket for the vocal to sit in. So when I say like a vocal sitting on top of the track, what that means is that it sounds like there's the track and then the vocals kind of pushed up volume wise. And it's also not blended with usually what happens is the vocal has to be turned up too much because there isn't enough EQ, there isn't enough pocket in the stereo mix for the vocal to sit comfortably, is typically what happens in my experience with that. There could probably be some other reasons that could happen, but that's usually what happens. And then with something like this track, I feel like the vocal, part of it's like an emotional thing, but I also feel like it's like, perhaps like there's some EQ stuff that's happening in the center channel that's like maybe toying a little bit too much with like the mids, low mids, kind of like the meat of the vocal. And then if you just like saturate the vocal just a hair more, it'll probably pop a lot better. Mm-hmm. And it could be that too. But I think like the emotion, I did feel like the emotion of the vocal was just a hair flat as well. So I think it would be worth, if you're going to re-top line it, you'll obviously have to redo the vocals. And it'd just be an opportunity for you to get a little bit more of an energetic performance. You don't have to oversell it or anything like that. I just kind of felt like for the intensity of the track and kind of the vibe that you were going for, it was like just falling a hair flat. Is it different between songs for artist release and songs for sync? Well, one thing that I would really suggest doing for everybody, if you haven't by now, is just, and I'm not putting anybody on the spot here. It's just like, it's really important to not think of like making music for sync, because it's gotten so, those lines have blurred so much over the last like 5 or 6 years since I've been in the business, that it's really, you got to be thinking about like just making really good songs. So what we're thinking about is like when we're making stuff for sync, typically the music that's getting used for sync is like stuff that's commercially released. It sounds slick. It sounds like really well polished, professionally mixed and mastered, executed like, technically really well in the studio from like a performance standpoint, as well as like both just like the quality and the fidelity of the audio that's being captured. So it's kind of an all over picture. You basically want to create music that it's catchy. It's real. And I would argue that those are the types of things that artists are looking to make as well. So I think it's really like, when I'm talking about all this, it's like I would probably give the same advice to somebody who was trying to release an artist track. Although like, you might not be as like worried about putting keywords in. Although I think I don't know. I used to be like, oh, if I have to write like stuff with keywords, it's less creative or things like that. I think it actually forces you to really focus on like those common themes that are used so often in sync. The reason why they're so commonly used in sync is because they're arguably like the most important themes that as human beings we experience and we are considering in our day-to-day life. So in a way, we're kind of, when we're writing about these things, we're really forcing ourselves to communicate directly to people in a way that is like just very, it's something that's like very commonly comes up in our lives as like just real issues, real emotions that we tend to feel. And I feel like artist tracks are no different in a way. Yeah. I would reconsider the whole top line, because I felt like the generalness of the lyrics felt like it kind of from what I gathered from, I don't have all the lyrics to read like in front of me right this second, but and I wasn't really reading them as I was going along, but I could hear the lyrics, you know, it was well enunciated and everything like that. And I just kind of felt like overall, as a like an overall lyrical approach, I just felt a little too general, a little too, you know, had some cliches in it and could use some freshening up. So I would just consider doing the whole thing. I think it's worth it. You know, if you end up with something that you don't like as much, you can always just roll with this and, you know, move on to the next one. There's nothing wrong with that either. But, like I said, I wouldn't be mentioning this if I didn't feel like it could really help the song a lot. Yeah. So, you know, maybe, you know, consider retop lining it, you know, either yourself or, you know, you could even bring in a badass, lyrical writer. Find somebody in the course there or elsewhere that just writes like really dope lyrics that you really dig a lot, and you know could be an opportunity to collab. I do that all the time. For me, at the end of the day, it's all about like doing whatever's best for the song. If doing what's best for the song is like, you know, I'm a decent guitar player, but if what's best for the song is for me to bring somebody in to do it, I'm just going to do it. Cause it's like, at the end of the day, you can't have ego about this stuff. It's just whatever's best for it. All right, next, Sheila, you're up next. Rough Mix, looking for general feedback, particularly on vibe, production, vocal, syncability. Okay, let's check it out. Let me just make sure I haven't heard this already.
On the sky, cause I'm ready for a change. Wanna do something new, cause hey.
I don't think I have. So let's give it a spin. Nope. Let's check this out.
I'm breaking down these walls and taking off these chains. I got my eye on the sky cause I'm ready for a change. I don't want no old hate, don't want the same old thing. I'm gonna do something new cause I'm ready for a change. Are you ready for a change? Change. 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 If you want to make waves, wanna flip that flow, you got to slip from the grip of the devil, you know. Cause when you're cool to sink down in that familiar pain, you got to go cause you know then you're ready for a change. 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 Are you ready for a change? Change. 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 If you stay inside the game, then who's to blame? I'll leave it all behind to let this new light shine on all the pieces falling into line. Change. 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 I'm ready for a change. What you gonna do is get you through. Oh no, 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 I'm working for you. Oh, are you ready for it?
I feel production wise, this feels like it's kind of stuck for me in a place. I really love the vocalist, by the way, in terms of the kind of the soulfulness of the voice. You know, I feel like it's a real authentic kind of soul sound. It's great. You know, I feel like it's a good performance there. And it feels this whole thing feels pretty well recorded to me. Just it's like the crispness of everything. It's well executed. I'm not hearing like rhythmic issues in terms of like things flamming or, and I feel like it's kind of gluing together pretty well in terms of the mix. The main things that I have with this is it feels kind of like rhythmically, it's a little stuck between like kind of like almost like an alt gospel kind of, it feels like it's a little sluggish, a little slow paced. It's a little, change kind of feels like something that should be like maybe a little more exciting. I just kind of feel like perhaps it's like it just feels like it's a little bit between almost like an alt gospel kind of feel and like almost something that's like wants to be a little more excitable and a little more like kind of up tempo. Kind of reminds me like kind of a blend between like you know, some alt gospel or like a could potentially be like in a almost like a Bruno Mars kind of vibe. You know, in terms of like the production, you could go in like, it feels kind of sits like kind of in the middle there somewhere for me. I feel like the lyrics, again, it's like with this track, I feel like it's kind of similar to the last track where I feel like the lyrics are fairly general, which I feel like for something, it's not necessarily a bad thing with a song like this to have. I really think that like a simple message on the chorus can be really powerful. But just change by itself it's not a particularly like fresh lyrical concept. So that's the thing is like what's the fresh angle on change that could be like that, you know, almost sound like an ad campaign, like what's the catchy, what's the new fresh like kind of version of like change is what I think when I hear that chorus. And I also think for something like this, you could also like, if you go more like the alt gospel kind of direction, you could even like pare back a little bit on the production a little bit, and you could bring in more voices and have it be like kind of like a gang thing. So that's my thoughts on this. I feel like it's a really well put together track. I feel like, you know, melodically it's pretty good, catchy, and I feel like it builds up. I think that the lyrics could use some work, and yeah, rhythmically, it's like I said, it's kind of sitting in like for a song, it's change. A lot of the songs that are about change are a little more like up tempo, like a little more excitable. But this could be good too. You know, just if like more like a societal change. It makes me feel like if you were going kind of that direction, you would want to maybe even like slow it down and make it more like an alt gospel kind of like really like play that angle a little bit more. That's a couple thoughts I have. Hopefully they're helpful, you know? Thanks for sharing the track. Love that vocal. Okay, this is Patrice. See you, Lori. Thanks for joining us. There are 3 tracks in this, and it's not clear to me which one you're wanting feedback for. So if Patrice or Teresa are on the call, let me know which of these tracks. Otherwise, I'll just keep going, and we can get to you later. But there's 3 tracks in there, and I don't know which one is the track that you want me to spin. Cody, you're next. Rough Demo. Wrote this 2 days ago, and I'm wondering if you feel the production is headed on the right track. I know it's super rough, and I'd ideally like to find a pro to produce. Okay, cool.
Hello, John.
Yes.
Hi. I co-wrote C with Patrice.
I want to stay here.
Oh, okay.
You want to go? You're confusing me. I thought you wanted to stay here.
I didn't catch that. Sorry.
Okay, I'll type it.
So, oh yeah. Give me the title of the song. Yeah, I'll spin it. Okay, great. Here we go. Thank you. Oh yeah, let me just, I want to check this real quick. I want to see this one more time. If you feel okay. Yeah. This is feedback that's you're asking for, again, kind of like references to kind of produce something out in. And I mean, I'll just like definitely say, like, again, it's just something we definitely want to just reinforce, is that it's always better to kind of start the other way around in terms of, like, you know, having an idea what your references are before you start writing. But let's give it a spin. I'm happy to give my 2 cents on that. Here we go.
Fall comes and the leaves will fall. Winter sun isn't very hard. Hearts feel what they want to feel. Sometimes they just need a little self-control. Oh, 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 I just wanna let go. Oh, 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 but you've taken a hold. Oh, 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 I just wanna let go and let my seasons unfold. Summer's love isn't quite so real, 'cause after the warmth's gone, the cold's revealed. We all need the seasons, even if we can't find a reason. Oh, 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 I just wanna let go. Let this horse. Snow White is heading north. Both don't even know that they were so close to something. So let go and let my seasons unfold.
You know, as far as references, I would literally just go on Spotify and look up piano singer-songwriter tracks. Just look up modern singer-songwriter tracks, and you can just find all the ones that are piano-based. And I'm sure you'll come up with some really good ideas and some cool references that are totally relevant to today's marketplace. That's my thoughts, like, in terms of references that I would go for a song like this. I think that would be like no brainer. I mean, just modern singer-songwriter sound, I think you could do for something like this. Specific artists, nobody particularly strikes my ear or anything like that. I'd go hunting, you know, for a cool sound, production wise. Happy to give you some more specific feedback if you want it. I don't know, like, how do you all feel? Like, here's a question I have for y'all. Just because, like, I've just give the advice. I never really thought, like, you know, maybe some of you wouldn't want, like, more specific advice on, or like just like perspectives on anything outside of what you're asking for. You know, I just want everybody to know if I'm ever spinning your song and all you want is just feedback on, like, what you're asking about, just it's totally cool. And it's no problem for me. All right, well, cool. Just at any time, anybody has a song and you just want to know, like, one thing or another, like my take on it, I don't have to give you extra stuff. But just the couple things that I noticed when I was listening to this is just how busy your top line is. It almost occupies every piece of real estate that the track gives, which I think it's really important to kind of think about, like, when you're writing top lines, kind of the economy of what you're doing, the economy of your melody, the economy of your rhythms, because if you clutter up the track too much, I really believe that, this is my philosophy on this anyways, and just from what I've heard in music that's successful, there's like more of a give and take with you want to build like a kind of an interesting relationship between the vocal and the track itself. And when the vocal is constantly going on and the track is constantly going on, then they're both like basically vying for attention the entire time. And the vocal is always going to win. What ends up happening with that is emotionally, if it's too much, if it's too much vocals, then there's no room for the listener to kind of take in what's being sung, both like just like mentally, but also like kind of emotionally for like what's being sung to kind of like to kind of like transfer down to here and kind of have the feels with that. So I think there's some beautiful vocal melodies that are happening here, but it feels a little just a hair too much for me, just in terms of like the overall top line approach. Something you might want to consider if you did do any like kind of rewrites on this. The other thing I would say too is that for sync, a track like this is probably going to be pretty tough to place because there's very specific lyrics about specific seasons, and it might be better to write a song about winter, for example, than write a song about like all 4 seasons. Because perhaps like I'm just trying to think like visually what a song like this would be like the best fit for, maybe like a montage where it shows like things happening over the course of a year or like an extended period of time or something like that. But how often do those come up? I don't know. It just doesn't seem like a very common theme that would pop up. So I think it's just going back, unfortunately you've written in a genre that I think is like very easy to find modern references for. This kind of slow piano singer-songwriter stuff there's still like tons of it that's being made all the time and it's getting used all the time on shows. So it's not going to be hard for you to find modern references for this. But I do think that like you're targeting, you might want to go back. It could be worth your time to go back to that list that Kathy and I gave at the beginning of the course and just maybe consider is there some way you can pivot the song to make it something that's a little bit more like universal. Is my thoughts on this. Yeah, just kind of like the overall thoughts, but it's great that you ended up with a track that like production wise, I feel like you've got, there's a few directions I'm sure you could go with this. You could do something more simplistic. I think I would err on the side of being simple with it because like just kind of the emotion, the vulnerable emotion of the track, I don't feel like it really needs a ton of production. It could build, but I think if you do retop line, that could kind of factor into just how big the song gets too. So that's my thoughts. Thanks for sharing the track. We got time to spin a few more here, I think. All right, Cody, you're next. Wrote this a couple days ago. Okay, here we go. Not sure if I heard this before. Let me give it a spin. No, I don't think I've heard this. Here we go. Wrong screen. Okay. I love how, by the way, and I don't say this enough, I think I love how supportive everybody is and how excited everybody gets when it's somebody's turn to have a song played. It like makes me smile a little bit every time I see that. It's very sweet. It's part of why I love this. I love like being a part of like leading this experience is just like I know how good the people are in this group. It's very special to me. All right, here we go.
Little bit of dust on a window frame, collecting like trinkets on the shelf. Eyes cracked open like the peeling paint. Radio's on, singing to myself. 'Cause I'm wide-eyed, laying in my bed. Wide-eyed, laying in my bed. Laying in my bed. Laying in my bed. Wide awake, so wide awake. Wide-eyed, laying in my bed. Wide-eyed, can't help it, 'cause I'm wide-eyed, laying in my bed, wide-eyed, laying in my bed, laying in my bed, laying in my bed, wide awake, so wide awake, wide-eyed, laying in my bed, wide.
I like that. That chorus hook is cool. I feel like it's pretty catchy too. That the wide-eyed, especially like the wide-eyed. I think that the feedback I gave on the previous song kind of applies to this one in terms of the economy on it. I feel like it's a very busy top line. I mean, even on the chorus, you could simplify it a lot. You just wide-eyed, wide-eyed, I'm wide-eyed. I can't go to sleep because I'm wide-eyed. I don't know. Just a thought. You could simplify that up a lot because that space. Here's the thing we got to consider when we're, and it sounds like you're playing acoustic guitar on that. I remember from when I was, out there. I actually had the fun experience of just going through my I have like a music career scrapbook that I've had since I was like 22 years old, and I was going through it over the new year, and one of the things that I dug out of there was I have like 6 years in a row of going out to the 3rd Street Promenade and street performing, and one of the things that I really learned as kind of a solo acoustic guy was I had to kind of learn to like kind of make it interesting all on my own. And part of what can happen with that is if, it can happen a lot with the drums and stuff like that because you're keeping a lot of rhythm stuff. That's one of the common issues that happens sometimes when acoustic artists come in and they're working around like an ensemble. It's like they don't have to do as much. So you kind of have to coach around that. Sometimes I know for a fact, like when I like started seriously recording myself, I had to kind of learn to not overplay stuff and learn not to get in the way of the rhythm of things. I think the same thing can happen with vocals as well, because we're kind of carrying like everything. It's like we got to kind of fill in the space and kind of make it a little more interesting. But I would argue that like once you have like a full track production, you're really not going to need to have that extra stuff. Maybe. And also like the wide eyes laying in my bed, those are kind of two separate concepts in a way. And the wide-eyed might be like wide-eyed just alone might be a good concept for a number of different situations, different visuals, versus wide-eyed laying in my bed makes it very specific. And I would say that like, I mean, that makes the song very specific to like insomnia. And is that something that you're going to have a ton of situations where that comes up? I mean, it's maybe going to come up every once in a while, I would think, but I don't know. Insomnia, the song doesn't feel like most songs. When you think about insomnia, it's a really unpleasant kind of thing. I don't know. I can't remember from the lyrics with this whether it was like a wide eyes because you're so excited about your life and you love your life, or if it's insomnia because you're having like a difficult time with something, or you're just occupied in your thoughts with something. But a lot of the scenes that I see where like insomnia is a thing, it's more about kind of just because like there's a stressful situation that you can't really like figure out, and you're stressed out about it and you're up, and then the music that kind of accompanies that is like it's unpleasant sounding, and it's like kind of adds to that kind of tension of the scene. I think for nostalgia, I feel like that's going to be a very, very specific situation that would be the best song for. So I think like just in terms of your theme, you could really simplify this a lot. You could maybe simplify you could have more economy kind of in just like your top line, but in a way that could force you to be very, a little more specific with, just what the song is about. And yeah, so there's that. What was that? Oh, I think production wise, I know it sounds like this is just like a kind of like a working demo and stuff. But one thing that it's got like kind of the stomp clap kind of thing with it. And that stomp clap thing definitely has kind of a almost like a heavier kind of darker kind of connotation with it. In contrast with the acoustic guitar, which is a little bit of a brighter kind of like mellower vibe, especially with that like little flangey kind of effect on it. I think like production wise, those two elements aren't really working in concert with each other so much. So I would really go to, once again, it goes back to like, what are your references with this? What are the tracks that are succeeding, kind of using in terms of like their production palette, like the different sounds that they're drawing from to put together a track that, not to say that there aren't like tracks that use like stomp clap or acoustic based tracks, but it's like kind of finding like the ways in the modern context that they're working together. Get yourself some ideas from stuff that's kind of already working. Could help you to create to put together a palette that's like it's interesting and unique, and but also is like in the context of what's working right now. Anything else? Oh yeah, just that like the transitions, transitory elements in production are really important. And it felt like the drums kind of came in like suddenly in like the pre-chorus, and then they kind of kept going in the chorus. It's like your builds, you want to be like very gradual with them, and there really wasn't enough production going on in this to like kind of feel the build so much. That's another thing when you have like a really raw kind of demo / work tape, is that it's hard to really tell. Even though you should, like, even just with an acoustic guitar in your voice, you should be able to feel the build. I feel like it's important to just note that, just with the few elements that you did have in the production, I wasn't really feeling the sense of transitions and anticipations and stuff that most successful music that I've heard tends to have. So that's my thoughts on it, man. I really dig your chorus hook. I think it's good. I think it's powerful enough, just like in a simpler format, perhaps, but what do I know? All right. Mark Stone. Here we go. Let me have it. I'll take any input. Jeff and I would surely appreciate it. Glad to give you some, man. Glad to give you some. Here we go.
Ooh yeah, I like it, ooh yeah, I like it, ooh yeah, I like it, ooh yeah. Motivation, no hesitation, pushing through what makes me feel good. My keep and can't stop thinking about it till I gotta have it. Ooh yeah, I gotta have it. I gotta have it. Gotta have it. I really need it. Makes my mind want to just think about. So distracted, so damn attracted. Till I gotta have it. I gotta have it. What I'm feeling, what I'm needing, looking for a new thing to make me feel good. When I find it, gonna make it mine, yeah. You know I gotta have it. I gotta have it.
Mark, I think this is like that. Ooh, yeah, I like it is like the best hook I've ever heard from you, and I think it's really cool. I think this could be really cool if it were. I think some of the lyrics need a little work, but I think in terms of the production direction that you chose, it sounds a little. It kind of feels, especially with the male vocal, it reminds me a lot of STP, which kind of gives it a like sort of a dated type of vibe, and it's a little heavier kind of a vibe, and it's a little busier type of a vibe than I feel like would really. I feel like a track like especially that hook would be really good for ads. If it was done right. What I would do is I would listen to I'd listen to some of the Highfields. The Highfields have a couple of songs that are like kind of really up tempo, quick, punchy. Like if you took the chorus that you have and then kind of like reverse engineered from there, kind of the angle that they kind of take with this kind of stuff, it's almost like car race, like you're at like a car rally or something like that. It's like up tempo, punky, more raw, more space. I would even think of like having a female sing this could be a good move. Like a sassy kind of quippy kind of like just rocket kind of vibe with a female singer could be really cool, with like a distorted vocal, like in a cool way, not like super over the top or anything like that. But I feel like the production needs more economy, like kind of this feels a little too dense, a little too dark with the kind of the vibe with it. It doesn't quite feel intense enough as in like an energy drink kind of way. And it also kind of, like I was saying, it's got a little bit of like a Stone Temple Pilots kind of feel to it. So it doesn't really, but I feel like that chorus could be like a little more like playful, kind of fun. Like you could write an entirely different song around that chorus if you picked like the right type of production, to kind of like the direction to go with it. That'd be my suggestion with that is, I think they have a song called Let's Go. Whoa, 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 oh, let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go. Like you could totally do something similar to that with this song. You'd probably do something a little different, but it's, you could have that kind of vibe with this, and it could work. You could also, there's other probably like cool, you could do an indie pop version of this. You could do, but I would, that's like kind of the direction that kind of screams out to me with this song. But I do think it would also be worth it to, when you pick a direction, you'll see like kind of what spaces you have in terms of your top line, just depending on like what your references are, and you can kind of rewrite this a little bit to more just like make it like an ad friendly kind of vibe. I think a track like this doesn't have to mean a lot. It just has to like give the emotion and the fun. It's like some types of ad songs, there really isn't a ton of substance to it, but it's more about the emotion in the moment. Is what I think. But I love this chorus melody. I think it's the best hook I've heard from you, and it's just like with Brian was on the call earlier, Brian Hodges, Mark, you're on like every single call, and it's just like I think this goes without saying, but I just want to let everybody know, and Sarah, you've been on like just so many of the calls, just the people who really like show up for this and really put it to work. Like there's huge change that I see and real growth that happens with this. And I just know that you're going to be successful because you're continuing to work at this and you're continuing to hone your craft, and you continue to be open to receiving constructive feedback about things. You're actually seeking it out, which it's like, the more you do that, I just continue to just keep doing it. And I know you will, but it's just been like, it's been such a like privilege for me to see, like in the short amount of time, not to say I had anything to do with it, but just to see it really has nothing to do with me. It has to do with like you really putting in the work. And it's obvious to me that you all are putting in the work. It's been like, it's like one of my favorite parts of all this is like not only just the really awesome people that are a part of it, and just like the types of people that are attracted to what Kathy and I are offering, but it's also just like it's the the actual work that gets done, and like you put in the hours, you put in that 10,000 hours, you don't give up, you keep trying, you keep tweaking, and eventually it's gonna if it doesn't make sense for you in sync, something will unlock for you. There's going to be a door that opens for you from this, I promise. So just keep doing what you're doing.
Don't sell yourself short, though, John. You had a tremendous effect on my ear and where this thing has gone. This year has been. I hope you don't mind my chiming in. I usually just hang out here, but no, you know, your input has been completely invaluable. This ear training, the reason I show up all the time. Everybody else's your feedback on everybody's song, because if you listen to what you're saying about everybody's song, you know, it completely applies to everything you do thereafter, or can, if you allow it, you know. I do a little bit of stuff with some alumni, the Zion and the Triple Threat group, and Josh. You know, it's all all totally like, and everybody. All the cool, you'll meet all the cool kids if you hang out long enough. I think it's just a matter of being at the pool long enough. I think, you know, and one of my huge icons is Lemmy, you know, and he went down swinging. That's how I plan on going too. You know, I'll find my home, but I really do appreciate that. But this will be our last one. Now I'll shut up. But thank you so much.
Yeah, it makes me emotional. Like, I don't know. I appreciate the kind words, and it's just like all the kind words I'm seeing in the chat too. It's like I send all that back to y'all, and it's just it's a beautiful thing when we can do this. And we, you know, it's a club, but it's also not a club. But it's like you kind of have to. We're drawn to this for a reason, and we end up finding our people, and we end up finding our home through this, and it's great because like I don't know any other. I'm sure there are like other industries and other like types of lines of work where people are like close knit, but it's like I feel like this in particular, this sync journey that we're all on, it's just like the people are just so fucking amazing, and we're all like so supportive of each other. I have no doubt that like I said, the people who like stick around, you know, that pool, you know, there might be a course that starts with like 300 people, but it's like the room will get smaller and smaller over time. And those people who stick around, those are the people that are going to have the opportunities because they don't give up. And it's just like, yeah, like I said, it's not a surprise to me that you and Sarah and folks like Brian, I mean, there's literally like probably dozens of folks that are from that January cohort that I don't have a list just kind of sitting in front of me, but I could go like bam, 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 like talking about like all the folks. Some of the folks like towards the end of that course, they just haven't been hopping on the calls quite as much. Otherwise, I'd give some more shout outs here. Definitely give a shout out to you, Sarah. It sounds like it's pretty late over there where you're at, but and we'll probably actually I'm just going to go ahead and spin your song here before we close for this week, just because it'd be good to get like one more song in from the January cohort before this is because this is their final listening session with us for those who don't join us in Legacy. So let's go ahead and do that now. Thank you so much, everybody, for your as always for your patience with getting your songs spun and all that stuff. It's I really appreciate it. All right, this I believe is your song, Sarah. Okay, You're My Home. Here we go. All right. Romantic songs aren't a bad thing. It really can limit what you can pitch it for. That's all it is. Not to say, I mean, romantic songs are like probably like 90% of the stuff that's on the top 40. And there's a reason for it, because it's like, it touches all of our heartstrings, you know? But it's also like a very, I would say it's like because there's so much of that music out there, it actually makes it more difficult to kind of rise to the surface. And also, I feel like there's fewer just opportunities on shows, even like where they have so much romantic leaning stuff, but it's like relatively very little like platonic love kind of stuff, other types of themes that it could be more fruitful potentially for you to investigate. But if you can make like the best love song of this year, you will be a very rich person. I guarantee you, if it gets out there. So here we go. Who knows? Maybe this is like the next big hit. We don't know.
It's a cloudy day. It's supposed to be a farewell. We never signed up for a fairy tale. We even tried to stay so far away. Oh, your eyes say I don't want to leave, and my kiss says you're all I need. If you can see what I can see, don't go. I'll be your daylight. Let me give it to you under the moonlight. I'll be waiting for you through the doubts and through the love. You're my own, my own, my own. Deep like a baseline, my heart's playing for you. Oh, it's no safe fight when I'm waiting for you through the doubts and through the love. You're my own, my own, my own. When I'm waiting for you through the doubts and through the love. You're my own, my own, my own. You're my own, my own, my own. My own, my own, my own. You're my own, my own, my own. You're my own, my own, my own.
I think that's great. You know, yeah, there are times where like, you know, blending home with love could work. Like, I feel like this song is the lyrics are good. And I feel like more than anything, the vibe is kind of quirky and cool, in like an indie rock kind of sense. I feel like it works. The vocal style works. The one thing I was kind of hearing, it didn't quite go the direction that I thought it was going to go. I thought it does kind of dynamically stay a little flat. I thought at some point that the vocalist was going, yeah, my home, my home, my home. Like it was going to go up into like a higher register or something like that. Like a little more, felt like that maybe would have been like more of like a passioned kind of direction with it. Yo, my home, my home, my home. Like I think something like that, if it was sung right and it had like the right effect on it, or you could even, one thing I was thinking is a common trick that the Black Keys use, not just the Black Keys, but it's like if you go, just check out a lot of their stuff, they'll blend like a female backup vocal in it, and just kind of tuck that in the back. That could be a really cool move with this too. Yeah, I think that's you know, it's quirky, cool. Could possibly have some cool backup vocals. Could possibly like have the singer kind of take it up a notch. At some point, could be a cool move that I was kind of anticipating, but it never quite happened. And so in that way, it keeps the cool vibe going, but it doesn't really like pick the track up to like a higher level. But I think like, you know, as it is, you could certainly pitch this for, you could pitch this for stuff, I think for sure. There's definitely like I feel like there's a home for something like this. I can't remember what the specific briefing was for, but it could have been, yeah. I mean, I was probably the one who screened this. So, I mean, that's probably the reason why. I mean, giving some constructive feedback here. It's probably, yeah, that's probably the feedback. That's probably the reason why it wasn't selected. But then again, Catch the Moon is one agency out of like many that are pitching stuff all the time. And do I think that there's a agency that would pitch a song like this? Absolutely. So even if it wasn't for that specific brief, I'm sure that like it just goes back to like I was saying earlier about Sarah, like she is consistently making music that is at a level that is totally pitchable. She's had interest from different agencies. I've seen it on Facebook. I've seen it in her posts. It's like it's a matter of time before things really start to land for you. I know for sure, because you're working with the right people. You're making productions that sound modern. They sound cool. And it's just, yeah. I think it's worth thinking about. That could be a cool move on that one. I just feel like, yeah, it's like dynamically it kind of stays a little flat. I feel like it's you should be totally proud of the work that you've done. Like it's, were you making songs that were like this when you first started the course? That's what I'm saying. Like, yeah, but you're making stuff. I'm telling you, like you're making stuff that is like marketable and cool, and for sure, like, which is the whole point with this. And for anybody else who's out there, she's a really cool person to collab with, perhaps. She's obviously somebody who like knows the ropes of this and is doing like really well, I feel like. So anybody who's in the August cohort, if you've got a cool idea and you want to potentially work with somebody who knows, who's making stuff right now that is definitely like hitting the bar that it needs to, she might get overwhelmed. She always has the option to pass. She might already have all the people that she needs to work with, but I always like to throw that out there because everybody in this community is very like supportive and I know I'm the same way. If I do have the bandwidth to help people out with stuff, I can. If there's there's a way we can make it work, it's just cool. Well, yeah, it looks like maybe in a couple months. Yeah. Anyways, I always try if I can to like make introductions. The introductions that happen in these calls are just as important as like the music that we listen to or the things that we say. So, I mean, ultimately, end of the day, part of the reason I'm going to this NAMM conference on Sunday, even though it's going to be like stressful and it's going to be kind of overwhelming and all that stuff. It's really, this music industry is all about relationships. And I have so many friends and people that are going to be there that I want to see. And, you gotta, if you're not doing it in person, you gotta do it online, do it however you can, connect here on these calls every week. We're doing it every week here. So, I just got the alarm to move my truck so I don't get a ticket. So I'm going to go do that. Wow. It's 3:45. This has been a great call. Once again, it just makes me kind of sad to like, actually makes me like kind of want to cry a little bit to think about like all the January folks won't be with us next week. But it's just been such a pleasure to have you, to be a part of this and for me to just be a part of this and to help you however I humbly can. And I hope like if you have any questions or you can reach out to me in the future. I have a little bit of difficulty with the whole Facebook inbox, but I'm around, you know where to reach me. And please don't be a stranger. And yeah, so, I mean, that's all I got to say for now. Great session. See you next week for sure. And, and I think we've got some type of an interview. I think so for everybody in January, I'll see you tomorrow. And everybody else, we'll see you on Friday. I think there's a call on Friday we're bringing in a guest. I can't remember their name, but I'll find more about that probably after this call. All right. Catch you later.